Wagwan.
Hello,
There
mate.
she is.
Hello. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm trying to figure out how to put this sort my fucking computer out. Sort it out. There we go. Sort it out, mate. How you doing, Elliot?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. It's so funny. This is like a little reunion from the past. It's been a while.
I know. I haven't. Yeah, it really is. I mean, I haven't spoken to Laurence in a minute.
I know it's been a while, isn't it? I'm trying to think. Last
Yeah,
time,
I've been avoiding you, mate.
the last
Elliot
time,
has to bring us back together.
all three of us. The last time all three of us were together, I think, was that time in LA.
When was that?
Like quite a long time. It's quite a long.
Hey, it's like 2015 or some shit.
No. Is that Lilu?
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
When was that?
It was basically when you went off to the what was it, the Golden Globe party with Eugene, and me and Elliot went off with
some dive.
It was a great night, but yeah, that was the last time that we were all together in LA, and
that was so funny, man. I just remember, like, Finn, you were texting us going, oh yeah, I'm eating like lobster pizza.
That sounds about where the equilibrium should be.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it because, like, thanks, Finn, for coming on, and then having Laurence coming on and co-hosting. It's just nice to have that dynamic where everyone knows each other and it can just be a chat and chilled out.
Right.
So, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
So,
I mean, it's just good to get together and share stories, and I mean, me and Laurence have a lot of stories. And it's and who doesn't like talking about themselves?
Exactly. I mean, I will try and make it about me, as I always do. This is why.
Of course. Yeah.
Everyone's story is completely different. Did you go to drama school, or what was your journey into this?
Yeah, I guess it kind of started. I started this Saturday youth theatre in Croydon, and it was this place called the Croydon Warehouse Theatre, and it was this tiny little dilapidated independent warehouse theatre where they did these kind of like semi-professional theatre shows, and then on the weekends they would hold these Saturday, youth theatre group. And it was kind of weird. I showed up and I was definitely the youngest. Most of the kids there were like 18 and I was 14, and it was really bizarre. Like, it was a lot of like experimental theatre workshops and not really like your traditional like, we weren't putting on plays, we weren't studying Shakespeare, it wasn't musical theatre. It was like doing really like expressive and odd group kind of theatre, like, I guess, like exercises, and I loved it. I loved how weird it was. I loved how self-expressive it was. It wasn't like anything I was doing before. Like, we were doing weird breathing techniques and all that kind of stuff. And so I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and I just found it really kind of opened me up. It gave me a lot of confidence. It was very quirky, and then that kind of led me to go to drama school. Applied for drama school when I was 18, and then was there for 3 years. And then after those 3 years, I picked up an agent at the what do you call it? It was like the showcase at the end of 3 years. Yeah, and then before I left drama school, I landed that job on Hollyoaks, and then
so that was your first job.
Yeah. That was
wow.
And Hollyoaks Late Night, I think it was.
Yeah.
The late night edition, brilliant.
Yeah, the racy version of Hollyoaks it was supposed to be, wasn't it? I guess.
I don't know. I just remember coming on adverts for it when it was out. Like, it'd be like, stay up late and watch the racy ones.
Oh.
Yeah, I played a drug dealer. I had an ice cream van, and I would sell ecstasy in the bottom of the ice cream cones. So I'd put the pills in the bottom of the cones, and then I'd do the ice cream and give it out to people.
Yeah, because you played, didn't you play Emma Rigby's boyfriend or love interest? Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went into the main show, and then just for a short while. But the interesting thing about that was it really allowed me to separate myself from like the school environment into the professional environment in such a very like clear way. Like I left drama school early. I went up to Liverpool. I was like very self-sufficient, and it just, I don't know, it was like it's like taking the training wheels off, you know, and like being thrown into the real world, and it really gave me a good kickstart into kind of like getting myself moving.
Mm-hmm.
Did you finish drama school before you went to Hollyoaks then, or?
I did. No, I think I wait. I'm trying to. I know I left early. But I completed the course.
Right.
But
Okay.
I think there was like the last term I left early because I was filming Hollyoaks.
God, I'm trying to remember now because you came on. I was already there. How long were you in the show?
It wasn't long. It was probably like 6 months in total, like 6 months worth of work. Yeah, like 6 to 7 months maybe.
That's a nice amount though. I feel like that place was. I don't know if you feel like this as well, but for me, it felt like a real training ground because you had to learn how to
Yeah.
do things quick, and there was a lot of lines, and it was really fast paced. And just a great way to work regularly and get to sort of practice almost.
Yeah.
I definitely watch back some of that footage and I think, oh my god.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad that I learned there.
Right. It's disposable.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that isn't hopefully rerun.
Yeah.
So it can't haunt you.
Yeah. And I just remember it being a really nice environment. Like people were just very friendly and it was exciting, and I really enjoyed my time there. I met some really interesting people, and yeah, it was a good amount of time. You know, I feel like if you get stuck on that thing for years, you can get quite jaded by it, maybe. You know, but for me, it was a nice little launch pad. I'm really grateful that I had that, and it was yeah, I had a fun little storyline as well. The character was cute, and he was a bit of a rebel, and it was. I remember I think that my last scene in that I was getting like the police dragged me away and threw me in prison.
Oh, so there is a possibility he could return.
Watch out. Call it a comeback.
It's good, I guess. Yeah, going straight from drama school into a show like that, so you kind of learn really quick. Because I'm guessing you learned stuff on the show that you might not have learned at drama school, or maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah, definitely. I mean, drama school is all hypothetical. Yeah, it's all hypothetical. You know, you're putting on these shows, and whilst it's fun, it's not the real world. You know, and so to go out into the real world and like then suddenly have like, I don't know, just the pressure of responsibility, like it was like other experienced actors as well. I feel like as an actor, you always learn the most when you're with other people that have more experience than you. Right. And so when you get to work in environments where you're working with someone that's worked for like 40 years or 20 years, I've always found it the most like learnful experience in those moments. And so it was cool to go onto Hollyoaks and like get that for the first time and be like, wow, these people have been doing this for like 6 or 7 years, and like, look at how they're handling themselves and look at how they bring themselves to their work, and it was inspiring. It was
yeah, those sort of I mean I really felt like sometimes shows like that can have a stigma, and I was really taken by how talented everyone on that show is, and how as you say, a great experience and great people, and it's like a family. And as you say, it's one of those things. It's a fine line, isn't it? Staying too long and kind of being stuck, and staying there for a bit and getting what you need out of it, and then moving on. And obviously, if that's what you want to do, you want to stay there and make a lot of money and have regular work as an actor, then fair play. But it is one of those things. It's you see people fly from that position and you see people give up. It's kind of one of those things where you have to time it right. And I mean, obviously there's a few people we know that have done very well, you yourself included. And from there, I noticed that you, I mean, I always bring this up with the people that are on here. Every single person that has come on this show so far has been in the bill. And I believe you've been in the bill. It is like a right.
Yeah. It's a rite of passage. It was. I mean, they don't have the bill. It's gone. Yeah, I did. So after Hollyoaks, I had a year where I worked on like Doctors.
Oh yeah.
The Bill, and then there was like a Sarah Jane Adventures, which was like a Doctor Who spin-off. but you're right. It's like you've either done one of those three things as an actor, like or Holby City, you know.
Yeah. Used to be Casualty. I don't know if that's still going.
Casualty, that was it. Yeah, it's like you're earning your stripes, you know.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you did that. That was immediately after Hollyoaks, was it? You went from Hollyoaks to Bill. And
Yeah.
I'm gauging you haven't thought about this for a while because you're like, what did I do? It is funny how you
Yeah,
think
no,
the order.
I haven't thought about it in a long time. Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's really funny, like looking back on it, because it's so long ago now. It's over 10 years, which is mad.
Yeah,
And I was so young. I was a fucking baby. Like
How old were you?
I mean, I was 22, 23.
Yeah.
But in terms of just like life experience compared to what I have now, and like, I don't know, I was just like, it was just so fresh and naive and like just, you know, jumping right into it.
What a great time to go and do those jobs, though. I feel like it's the early 20s to be able to get that experience and then, you know, actually have some money in your pocket and then be able to go on and do other projects. That's such a nice timing thing.
Yeah. I should actually, this kind of, well, yeah. So I was going to bring in Laurence, but just before we get there, so I did the Sarah Jane Adventures, and then from that I got an audition for Game of Thrones, and then that I remember I was on the last day of shooting Sarah Jane Adventures in, I think Devon it was. No, not Devon. It was in Wales. And I remember getting this audition. I took the train back to London to do the audition. I did the first audition and completely, I thought I fucked it up. Like I thought it was terrible. Like I left the audition and I was just like so disappointed. I just hated myself. And then 2 weeks later, I get a phone call for a recall. And I go in and do the recall with the producers and directors and all that kind of stuff. And then I think 2 weeks after that, then I got the job. And then so I started doing that for like, and I think I was doing that for like 3 years on and off. This is interesting stories. So like the way that I met Laurence, so the situation I was in is I was working on Game of Thrones, and I was at the same time as working on Game of Thrones, I had to have a bar job. Like I had to support myself. Like Game of Thrones wasn't paying the rent, right? And so I had to work this bar job. So I was working a bar job simultaneously, which was a kind of weird thing to do, you know, be on a
before you go on and explain that, just to, you know, make a point of that is crazy to the general public. If you're in Game of Thrones, you think you can pay the bills, but it's still a fucking grind. Like having even a job like that, if you're not regularly filming, you still got to survive, and you still got to be able to pay the rent and have a side job. That is an insane.
Especially for like younger actors that are coming up that don't have the experience on their belt to like get them that money. Do you know what I mean? It's a ladder. You know, you're just climbing the ladder. In terms of pay, anyway. You know, like, so that's what I was doing. I was working in a bar. I was like working like, you know, all nights of the week, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I worked with good people, but it was weird. You know, I'd be serving cocktails or whatever, and I'd have people recognize me, and they'd just be like, what the fuck are you doing here? And anyway, so I got fired from that job. I got fired from a lot of bar jobs. Mainly because just my heart wasn't in it, you know, like I was just always distracted and whatever. And it got to the point where like I was broke. I was like super, super broke, and I was on the cusp of making a dog walking company. I had like I made the leaflets. It was called FinDog, like spelled DAWG, you know. And I was about to do that. That was like my last option. I was like, what the fuck do I do? How do I make money? All right, I'll walk people's dogs, you know. And then I think I was just about to like really launch that and go into that, and then I met Laurence. And we met. Where did we meet? We met at one of Nat's gigs, right?
I think it was one of Natalia's gigs. That's where we first met, because there's quite a few people in Game of Thrones there, because Natalia was in the show as well. And then we talked about, I was explaining to you how I worked with Nat for the Comic-Con stuff. And then
so Laurence just came up to me out of nowhere and was just like,
sounds about right.
in this dank dark cellar, and like, you know, when Nat was playing this like gig or whatever, and he just started going on about like these convention things. And he was like, oh, you can do this thing, you turn up and we'll give you a fee and you like sign some autographs and take some pictures. And I was like, all right, first of all, this sounds way too good to be true. So I was like very kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like I didn't trust him to begin with. I thought he was trying to like, I don't know, have his way with me.
His wicked way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And so then I spoke to Nat about it, and Nat was like, no, Laurence is a really fucking good dude. Like, trust him. Like, he'll help you out. Like, you should definitely like follow that. And so I did. And then by doing conventions, it allowed me to support myself, right? And not needing to have that bar job. And what that or that dog walking company. And what it really allowed me to do was like give myself space to commit to the auditions in a more focused way. I wasn't trying to split my time and get distracted. Like I had this thing where I could go and make a nice little amount of money, which would then like keep me going whilst I could then audition, and it freed me up, I think, to then really build myself a career. And so I always look back at conventions and think to myself like, oh, I'm just so grateful of them, because the fan support there really, I mean, it really meant a lot to me. It really allowed me to then go and have the career that I have now.
And it was great too, because I think as well, you at those events you give back to the fandom that do support your career. And
right.
I think as an actor too, especially now with the day and age of things like how important social media is in the world of acting in a weird, strange way, you can kind of go there and start building up your fan base. And also I think understanding who's watching your work, which I think is quite a good and important thing to know. Be like, okay, I now understand who actually is watching, supporting the stuff that I do.
Right. It gives you, for sure. Like I definitely, because when you film these things, it's very isolated. It's not like a theatre performance where you get to see the audience, whether it's before or afterwards or during the show. You have an idea of the people that are engaged with your work. In a film or television production, you're just with the crew, and then it goes out into the world, and it's a very separate experience. But when you come and do Comic-Cons, you're like, oh, these are the people that are engaged in the work that I'm working on. And it just makes, it bridges that gap, and it's just super nice. It's just very gratifying and humbling and rewarding.
Making that step as well as an actor is a huge deal. Being able to then, as you say, free yourself up to not have to be distracted by other side jobs and everything else. I think that's a major thing, and it took me 10 years to do that, and I've only just managed to be able to do it. And it is, once you're fully focused on what you want to do and your passion, then I feel like with auditions, they take a lot of time, especially with self-tapes and everything, learning the lines. Like, you need that time to be able to commit yourself 100%. So that is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, totally. You need that time, and then there's also like time to like look after your body and your mental health, and like like it is a full, even when you're not behind the camera or in front of the camera, there's still all of the preparation time to get that job. And like you need to have the space in your life to be totally focused to that, because if you're not, it's easier to get distracted and then not get those jobs. So it was my meeting with Laurence and me starting to do Comic-Cons that really allowed me to really get into my career.
So and we had saying is Laurence is to thank for all of this, really.
I mean, for sure. Like I won't deny that. Like definitely those earlier parts of my career, when I was like 24 to like 27. Yeah, it was the opportunities that Laurence provided for me that really allowed me to go on to the next stage of my career. And we had a lot of fun doing it, man.
We traveled to a lot of places, and
yeah.
Oh, man, those are fun days. And it was also, I think, for me, it was really because for a lot of people like Finn and other clients, I've become very good friends with them. And it was very nice to kind of be on that journey with them as well. So with Finn, for example, it was so nice to see him go through the Game of Thrones phase and then be there when he started going on to the phase with Iron Fist, and then going on to the next job. And it's happened with quite a few clients, and it's really kind of in a weird way, not weird at all, but actually it's a rewarding for me too, to be like, wow, I'm so glad I could be there along the way and support them, and I'm so proud of them as well to see how well everyone's done.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. We've been all over the place. Like, where have we been? Like Australia, Argentina, Japan, most of Europe.
Yeah.
Just everywhere. And it's like, it's
what
cool.
an amazing side job. Yeah,
it's so cool. It's so fucking cool. And to do that with someone that's like such a good friend,
Mm-hmm.
And what's been nice about it too, I think, is a lot of the time, obviously, when you're on a job as an actor, you obviously make friends with people, but sometimes you're not always going to be in the same scenes, and you're in at different days. And with the Comic Cons, like, you're then becoming friends with people that you've worked with but not so often, who've now become good friends. Well, I thought anyway, when we were going around. And so we had like a group of us that would just go around traveling together. And it was just so fun. Yeah. And it was really nice. And it was nice to bring actors together that didn't get to see each other all the time offset,
Yeah.
That was a kind of a rewarding part.
Yeah, that's another nice thing about Comic-Cons as well, is that it's a chance for other actors not only to engage with the audience, but also to reconnect with other actors that they spent that time working on the show. And for some people that could be like 10 years apart, and some people would be very recent.
That's why I like it too.
Yeah, I miss them, man. I hope they come back soon. I'm sure they will.
Fingers crossed.
Well,
they will.
Before the call started, that it's obviously your job, Laurence, it is based on having a lot of people in a room. So unfortunately, it's hopefully it will come back soon. But it really is the epitome of what we're not allowed to do right now. Unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a lot of shaking hands.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of mad because just before the pandemic kind of really kick off in England, I was doing a convention in London at the end of February, and it was kind of, Corona was kind of going around but not really a thing yet, and a lot of actors are there, and obviously everyone's in one big venue, and it was the discussion, it was kind of like, should we be shaking hands? I'm like, look, I don't really know, like, it's up to you, like, maybe we shouldn't do it. And like, okay, and but we were still doing photo shoots, and then a week after, me and a couple of clients flew to Malaga to Spain, and then we went to this one convention where it wasn't very well organized, but it was lovely, but it was fans coming from everywhere. And it was during that weekend, suddenly we were reading on the news being like, okay, guys, it's like really kicking off now. I think like the country might go into a lockdown. And they're like, and Spain's really bad. So literally the minute we flew back after a couple of days, it suddenly went to a lockdown.
My God.
Okay. It was,
timing.
crazy. Crazy thinking about it now, yeah.
It was kind of weird, like when that happened last March. I was working on a TV show, and it was like the world was just like going. It was like the train was moving. And then suddenly, just out of nowhere, the engine was turned off and everything just ground to a halt. And I remember being on set, and we were all talking about it. And like, I think we were one of the only last productions that was still filming in Hollywood, and everything else had shut down. And we were like, should we really still be like doing this? And it felt weird. And then I remember like halfway through the day, they sent us home, and the producer was like, all right, guys, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. It's like,
oh,
no. 2 weeks off, and then we'll be back to filming after then, and hopefully everyone is okay. And I remember then when he said 2 weeks, I was like, yeah, fucking right. This isn't going to be 2 weeks. Like, what? You really believe that this is just going to be 2 weeks and it's going to be over? Anyway, and here we are.
Have you finished it yet?
Yeah.
Have you finished that show yet, or is it still
pending? Yeah. We went back in September, and that was a wild experience. Like to work on the same show before and after COVID,
right. Imagine,
during COVID, and it was. I was a little bit before going into it. I was a little bit concerned about how much the dynamic would have changed, how difficult it might be to work, but actually, it was great. It was. I didn't find that shooting through COVID was at all that different, really. Like, everyone's wearing masks, but other than that, people were tested 3 times a week. So like the whole crew is tested Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so like it's a really isolated thing, and yeah, it was cool. It didn't really feel any different, which was nice. That kind of made me feel a little bit better, you know, to know that at least our industry can be self-contained enough to continue to create.
Mm-hmm. And to be able to get to work as well, excuse me, through that. Because you know, a lot of even some of the most successful people I know are like, I can't get a job. There's no work. So that's amazing to be able to have the opportunity to actually be working through that.
It really helped my mental health knowing that I had that last bit of work to go back to.
Right.
You know, like when everything shut down, the fact that I knew that I had to finish off something, and even it was only 3 weeks, but just knowing that I had that, it stopped me from falling apart. You know, because I do recognize that if I was in a situation where I didn't have any work and I had nothing on the horizon, I think I probably would have been. It would have been scary, you know. We didn't really know what was going on, and I think it's true to say that the thing that every actor struggles with is not knowing the future timeline of work, you know. And when you're in that pattern of not having any work, it's like, it's horrible. It's
a big,
you know,
change.
It doesn't matter how successful you are, like that feeling is brutal.
It's always there.
Yeah, it's always there. It never goes away. But then with the pandemic, where you feel like the whole world is fucking falling apart, you know, my agent, she lost her job during the pandemic, and that was, you know, I'd been with her for years. She was my girl, you know. We were a team, and you know, and it's like moments like that, you just feel like everything's fucking crumbling and falling away and splitting apart, and it can be very it can be very destructive to one's mental health. But just knowing that I had that job to go back to really allowed me to, like, it was that carrot at the end of the tunnel, you know.
Yeah, without diverting off too far. I mean, when it comes to things like that, I know I have certain, you know, coping mechanisms when it comes to sort of talking myself down when I'm feeling like, oh God, I need to get a job, or there needs to be something light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Do you? I mean, I obviously, we've chatted before in the past, and you traveling around America and having that sense of adventure in between jobs, is that something that kind of helps you, you know, distract and
I think it is. Yeah, it's the idea of like planning something, right? Like in my head, I always have to have like at least a plan like 4 months ahead, you know, because I don't have a regular job. I need to know what I'm going to do in at least 4 months' time, right? Just to keep that train going, keep the carrot there. And yeah, traveling is definitely. I mean, I've always been an avid traveler. I love it. I'm quite a singular, independent person, and like I feel like I'm at my best when I am on the move, and I'm very nomadic by nature. And so when something like this pandemic hits, I mean, that's extra hard, because like that's just not me. Like I do not sit in one place. And so trying to navigate that was interesting. And yeah, like I was in New York, and it was really cold, and like everything was shut down, and I was just like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna just drive across the country. I'm just gonna do it, and that really, I mean, it was amazing. It really, I think it just expands your perspective of what is going on. You know, like I was in a situation where I was just getting, my only perspective of the world was given to me through the news or through social media. And I constantly feel like this perception is divisive, and kind of like not really representative of reality. And so I was like, well, and especially in this country where we're taught that blue states perceive red states in a certain way, and red states perceive blue states in a certain way, right? And it's very divided. And I was like, you know what? I want to go out there and I want to see it. I want to drive around in the middle of this like historic world event and just speak to people and see what the vibe is and how people are reacting to it. And so I drove. I went down the south. I went through all the South states and then up through Texas, and then around the Four Corners for a little bit. And it was really amazing, kind of just getting out there and speaking to people and see what was going on. Actually gave me a lot of hope, you know.
That's good. I mean, I see your pictures and it gives me hope. I'm like, I wish I was doing that.
Right.
There's not so much to drive around in England. You kind of, you do a 4-hour drive, you're kind of done. It's nice to have that open space where you can go anywhere and you can see all kinds of landscapes, all kinds of people, and it's it's such a huge country with such variation.
Yeah, that's one of the most beautiful things about America. It is just the wealth of the landscape here, and the natural beauty is kind of unbelievable. And I never really understood it until this last year when I was driving around it. I'd always just fly to different places and you just see the cities, but it's not until you like drive from city to city to city you realize just how expansive and beautiful this country really is. And the freedom, there is just that like nomadic pioneering spirit out there in the middle. I don't know if you've seen Nomadland yet.
No, is it good?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's such a good film. But like the at the core of that film is that kind of like nomadic pioneering spirit that you do find on the road in America. You do find those kind of people that are just out in the Wild West, like doing their thing. When I was driving around the other day or the other month, I was in this place called Lake Powell in Utah, and I was just set up camp because I was camping everywhere. And I just set up camp on this beach, and next to me there was this family, and it was a mum, a dad, and 2 kids, and both of the kids were about 10 years old, and they'd all decided to sell their house, and they were just living on the road, and they were all self-contained. They had this they were living in a tent. The kids were like in the car on Zoom call while the parents were like in the tent like doing their work, and like at the end of the day they would go out and explore, and they would all cook out of their tent and everything, and it just was like, it was really cool. Like they were just like adventuring.
Well, I mean, and now is the time to do that. I mean, you take advantage and actually make it into a good thing. That's incredible.
That's it, and that's what they were doing, and it's wonderful to see that America is somewhere where you can do that. There is the land for that, there is the space for that. In the UK it's a little bit different. It's like like you said, there's only so far you can go before you hit the water, and then you get back to the other side.
Start doing loops, and then you're like, well, I've kind of done this now.
Right. But I think it's a state of mind. It's definitely like, it is also a state of mind. Freedom is a state of mind. It's like that the ability to kind of like step outside the box that you may be in, even if it's the smaller things that you do, and I think I learned that a lot this pandemic as well. It's just like, how do you try and stay sane and stay free when there's all these restrictions,
And how do you normally, when you do these little trips, do you usually go with a friend, or do you go on your own? Did you feel it more?
I did it completely alone, because it's hard to find people that want to do that shit,
See, that's like, I mean, that's, for me, sounds brave. Like I've never done that. I've never really done a trip like that on my own. And I feel like it must be quite a freeing experience. Well, I mean, was there, the first time you did it, was it kind of like you acknowledged the fact that, this could go either way? Or did you know that you were going to enjoy it and that it was going to be great?
So the first time I did it was when I was in LA when the pandemic first hit, and then it was like June. I had to go back to New York. I just had to go back there because I was like paying rent in 2 places, and it wasn't, I just couldn't keep on doing that. And so I was like, all right, I'll drive, because I didn't want to get on a plane. So I was kind of forced to drive, right? And it was right in the middle of all the protests that were happening in America. And so it felt like a very volatile time in the US, like really volatile. And there was a part of me that was like, Finn, maybe you should just like stay in your place, because like that's like, you know what that is, and like you don't know what's out there in the big scary world, you know, like all kinds, like, you know, on the news it was like America is burning, you know, and like they would show the protests of like everywhere that was happening around the country, and so everyone felt like there was a lot of hostility everywhere. And I was like, no, fuck it, Finn. Like, you want to do this. Like, you've been cooped up for so long, for like 3 months in like this place. Like, just go and do it. You know, like, don't listen to that fear. Like, you'll be fine. Just get on the road and go. And so, and also, like, I had to leave where I was. And so I did it. And the moment that I got out of the city and I got into the wild, I just felt so good. I just felt free. Like, it just, like, the weight was off my shoulders. And I was just isolated in the wild, doing my thing, you know, just no one else around, pooping in a bush, you know.
What more can you want?
Nothing really. I was so content, and like there was moments where I was so isolated, like you'd have that fear come in. You're like, oh, what if, like, you know, someone comes out of nowhere and tries to kill me? But then you're like, well, hold on, you're in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like, it would be so rare for someone else to be in this situation when you are. And so I kind of just like rationalized the fear out of me. And then it was, yeah, I just loved it so much. So I've just like kept on doing it.
No, I love that you took advantage of the situation and you made it into a good situation.
Yeah. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
We're all jealous. We see the pictures and we're like,
No.
I mean, I'm in a 1-bedroom flat in Wandsworth right now. So I'm
Right.
feeling the cabin fever is real.
Yeah.
I want to get in a van and like do a little, you know, travel around. But that's
I feel like most people can though. Like, you know, you can get on a train and like take a tent somewhere and go and do it. You know, like everyone can do it. It's not like you have to have the economical means. You know, like camping is a very, I mean, it's not a thing that everyone, I feel like, can do it if they just put their mind to it, even if it's just for a weekend, you know? And so like when I was like posting about it on Instagram, I wasn't posting because I wanted to make people jealous. It was more like I was posting to try and inspire people to go and give it a go. You know what I mean? Like, look, you can leave your house and like isolate yourself and go on a little adventure, because it will help you. And it definitely helped me. It made me feel more connected to myself, to nature, and also to the larger population, you know. And there's ways of doing it where you can be safe. Like, it's.
I mean, there are definitely certain people that do rub it in your face, and yours isn't. Yeah, I mean, for me, it is inspiring. I genuinely, and I do message you occasionally. And I'm like, where is that? I want to know where it is. I want to go there. Yeah. Point.
Totally.
But yeah, no, that's a lovely thing to be able to do in between, and I guess like I heard a story about it was Michael Fassbender when he was doing Inglourious Bastards, and he apparently drove his motorbike from England, I think it was, over to Germany to shoot the film, and he did that trip before obviously before it all started, and he informed the producers, and they were like, please don't, like, you think it's a long trip on a motorbike, you know, the possibilities of what could go wrong, and he did it, and I saw this interview with him talking about it, and he was like, it was an amazing experience, and I was watching that thinking, that is inspiring, like, just to go, I'm gonna do that. I've got this, you know, think you're doing a film with Quentin Tarantino, I'd be stressed out of my box thinking I've got to, get this right. But he's like, no, I'm going to have a chilled trip over there. And it probably really, mellowed him out.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I just did. So I was just shooting a movie in New Mexico. It was a short thing. Like, it was like a couple of weeks on a project. And I was, that's exactly what I said to myself. I was like, well, I could either fly in from New York, take me 4 hours to fly there, shoot for 2 weeks, and then fly back. Or I could spend a month, driving to New Mexico, get to New Mexico, do the film, then drive to Los Angeles, spend a couple of days a couple of weeks in Los Angeles, and then drive back. And especially at a time where like there's nothing really going on, I was just like, fuck it, do it, you know. And yeah, it's been great.
That must be good. Really focus as well. It gives you an opportunity to like be alone and to be able to kind of invest in that part before you go and shoot.
Right. Yeah, that was true. Yeah, it was really. I was playing a character called Charles Lindbergh, who was one of the first pilots to fly from New York. Well, he was the first ever pilot to fly from New York to Paris, the transatlantic. And so like he was a pioneer in himself. And I kind of used that as a kind of like a subconscious prep work, you know, like to drive across America by myself and like put myself kind of in the headspace of like how Charles must have felt when he was like flying across the ocean. And that was kind of cool to kind of bring in some prep work with the travel to the movie.
Nice, that's the way
So
to do it.
you get in the headspace and stuff.
So to go back to, you know, you're talking about Game of Thrones and kind of, you know, getting that job, and we didn't really touch on what was that like, because I vaguely remember when we were, I can't remember if Laurence was there. I think no, actually it was before, maybe it was before you guys met, but we were all at Leeds Festival with the Hollyoaks lot, and I remember you saying like,
I was there, yeah.
yeah. I remember,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, and
So
I remember you saying, "Oh, yeah, I've been shooting this thing. It's Game of Thrones," and you were describing it, and we were like, "Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, great." And oh yeah, all good. And then obviously when it came out, we're like, "Holy shit!" It became this phenomenon. And for you, were you obviously when you were chatting about it, you're very humble about it, very kind of, you know, yeah, it should be good. Did you have an inkling that it was going to turn into what it eventually turned into?
No, not at all, man. Like, I remember the first season, like we were all aware that it was a HBO show, you know, and that those guys are like, you know, they're the big dogs. And the source material, like we'd all read the source material and we all knew that it was a really good story, but there'd never been anything like that before. You know, like there'd never been a television show that had really caught the imagination of the world in such a way where it became like a cultural phenomenon. I kind of feel like the last time that happened with something was maybe Star Wars in the 70s and the 80s, you know, but we'd never really experienced something like that in our generation. And it wasn't until I feel like it wasn't until the third season.
Yeah, I say season 3 when it kicked off.
Yeah, like the Red Wedding. I remember when I saw the outcome of the Red Wedding on like the second page of like a newspaper in the UK. Like it made fucking like headline news that like Robb Stark had died at the Red Wedding, like a fictional television show. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, this has become something. And then it was like from then onwards, then it just started to get like just wilder and wilder and more popular. But the nice thing about that show was that everyone that worked on the show, like it just felt like a really close-knit family, lots of down to earth, good-natured, humble, real people working on that show. And so when we were working on the show, it just felt very authentic and it felt very natural and normal and like chill. And then it was like through the movie making process on the other side of the mirror was where all the madness was. And so it always felt, there was always this kind of weird dichotomy between like what Game of Thrones actually was to us working on it to compare to like what it was perceived as in the outside world, the other side of the mirror.
Because I kind of had like an inkling that it might be a bit of a big thing, just because one of my clients was working on the first season and had said to me, because she'd been used to doing these Comic-Con events, was like, I'm working on a show, told me what it was, told him to Google it, was like, I think it's going to be something that's going to take off in the world of the fantasy genre. And then cut to season 2, 3, then something like it's been said, that's when it just blew up and became this massive show. But I thought, yeah, from the beginning, I was like, I think this, by the sound of it, will be something that'll be very popular especially for the fan base. Something so different as well.
Yeah, I also think like television had never been made like that before.
Yeah,
you know, it's the first time that television was really cinematic, but not even cinematic, just the depth of the characters and the breadth of the storytelling in the world. I just don't think we'd ever seen in any kind of storytelling format before. Certainly not in films, maybe Lord of the Rings, but like that's still only 6 hours in total, maybe for the whole trilogy. Like this is the first time you've got to spend like 10 hours on one season, really building out this vast fantasy world with like great storytelling, great characters, great sets, great costumes. So really, it was just a perfect storm, you know. It was magic. I think that's the only way to describe it.
And for you, did you work much while you were doing that? And you said you obviously had your bar job. Did you work on other things while you were doing that? Or were you not allowed? Was it kind of?
It was a little bit difficult because, like, I think for like 6 months out of the year, you had to be available for that show, right? And then so the other 6 months, like, to try and fit something in. But then also, like, I was at a point of my career where I was still like carving it out. So like auditions and job offers, just they were harder to find and harder to seek out. So I remember a lot of the time, like, what my kind of yearly schedule was like was that I would be in London from like July to December, and that's when I would take the time to like shoot the show. And like within those 6 months, I would only work maybe like 5 weeks maximum. And then
mad, isn't it? They can tie you down for that long, and you be only there for 5 weeks. Wow.
And I would only be getting, paid for those 5 weeks out of the 6 months, right? So that's why the situation where I would have to find other work. And then from January through to like April, I flew myself to LA, and I would be out in LA trying to seek out other job opportunities. And then I had the Comic Cons in between times, and it was the Comic Cons that allowed me to have the fuel, the money to then go to LA and seek out work. Get the agents, get the managers, right? And so really, if it wasn't for these Comic Cons and giving me that extra bit of money, I wouldn't have had the fuel to then go and build the career over in LA and have the time to apply myself. And so yeah, during a lot of the time when I wasn't filming on Game of Thrones, me and Laurence would be out doing various Comic Cons.
And as you say, with those sort of jobs with Laurence, it's a shorter thing, so you can go and do a few bits over a weekend, and then still, it's a great way of doing it. Yeah,
it was cool, and it was fun. I mean, Jesus Christ, it was. I mean, I'll probably look back on it. I do now, especially now in the pandemic, and just like the golden years. No responsibility, complete freedom. Like success at your feet, and just out there. Just living the dream, basically.
Yeah, literally.
It was just incredible. Literally.
So, right, guys, it'll come back soon. You'll be able to go and do it once it's all sorted out.
Yeah, totally. And it's just the fun thing about being an actor, and like the chance for that dream to become a reality. And like maybe I'll get a job which is like Game of Thrones again, and I'll do that whole circuit, or maybe not. Maybe then it'll be someone else's turn to like live that dream, and just the whole idea that is even possible, or was possible, that now we live in a different world. But the fact that I just got to even taste a little part of that, it's just wonderful. And it's just wonderful.
I mean, it almost feels like you've already answered this question, but did that feel like a game changer at the time? Like, having Game of Thrones, did it feel like a shift in your career? Did it feel like something had changed, and that maybe things would become less of a grind, maybe, and jobs would be more forthcoming?
No, it only really felt like that with Iron Fist. Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones was great, but I was still like a guest. What was it, like a seasonal guest regular or whatever, or a guest star or something. So like I wasn't an episodic regular. It was I was still I was still trying to get to myself in a position in my career where I could really say be in that situation. And so it wasn't until I got Iron Fist, and I remember that moment when that job came around, that I felt like that. I felt like that was the shift. That was the turning point.
That must have been an incredible moment when you realized you had that. I mean, that is, a lead in a Netflix Marvel show. Like, that is an insane. I mean, no matter what, it doesn't matter what happens now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That is a huge achievement, and
it was like an electric time in my life. I was 27. Me and Laurence and Gethin, who's a friend of ours who was also in Game of Thrones, we'd rented a house up in the hills,
Yeah.
in Hollywood, and we were all tightly squeezed into this house because, like, you know, we definitely couldn't afford to live there, so we were like sharing each other's rooms or whatever, just trying to live the dream in whatever way we could. Me and Laurence were sharing them, that's for sure. I was on the inflatable mattress. Laurence took the fucking bed because he's a princess, which is true.
I don't doubt it.
And during that time was when Iron Fist, the auditions for Iron Fist came around, and it was this long, intense process where I was just kept on like going in for readings, and like they were really like, you know, eking it out. And I remember me and Laurence, I'd just done the screen test, and we were just waiting for the word, and we were down on Venice Beach, weren't we?
That's it, yeah.
And we were just watching the sun go down, and I remember we were having this conversation where we were trying to, like, I wouldn't say talk ourselves down from it, but it was like we were setting ourselves up, or I was setting myself up for a no, you know?
Yeah. And we're thinking, I think we were also kind of going like, what, you finished Thrones, like, what's going to be next? What do you next? And I think also the whole thing before that call came in, you were working, doing so many auditions, and LA, how brutal it was. I was there being like, wow, man, this is crazy. Like, I really hope you get something.
Yeah. And it was that moment in my career where I just left Thrones, and it was like, it really felt now or nothing situation. And we were like having this long conversation and watch the sun go down, and then suddenly, do you remember this? We saw these dolphins.
Yeah.
we saw like, I think 2 dolphins like in the distance, just like jump up out of the ocean.
It was amazing.
Sun setting behind on Venice Beach, and it was just like one of those moments. We looked at each other and we were like, wow, that was pretty cool. And my phone had died, right? So my phone was off, my phone had died, and we parked the car back up near Abbot Kinney. So we made the walk back to Abbot Kinney, and we got that donut. Remember that donut shop?
Oh yeah.
We went past, we got a donut, we got back to the car, and then I plugged my phone into the car to charge it. And as soon as my phone turned on, I had all these messages from my agent being like, call us now. And I was like, fuck. I was like, oh, fuck. And so, like, I remember we were on the side of the street.
You had a phone on loudspeaker as well.
Was it? Was it on loudspeaker?
Yeah.
It all kind of blurred out. It's probably best if you take the.
I mean, for my memory of it, it was on loudspeaker, and your manager had called and your agent had called, and both of them like, we need to talk. And obviously, we just had a conversation, and I remember being like, and in my head, I was sort of thinking, well, would they call to say it's no? Would they call? I don't know how it's going to work out. And then I remember when you finally got hold of it, your manager be like, oh, 1 second, let me get the agent on the phone call too. So all 3 of you was on the conversation together. I thought, okay, this is going to be some news here. And then your agent something along the lines of, we need to talk. Do you want to go grab some sushi? And you're like, okay. And he was like, yeah, are you able to grab the sushi in New York? And we both kind of looked at each other, and you're like, what are you saying? He went, you're going to be moving to New York because you got the job. You're going to be Iron Fist. And
that is smooth.
What? Yeah, it was mad. And it was just a crazy moment when you were just like, what? It was so exciting. I can't believe it. And it was great.
I can't even remember any of that. That's so weird. Like, when I guess I was just like so shocked, and like, I just can't remember that conversation at all. All I remember was the next moment I was like outside of the car on the phone to my mum.
Yeah.
Telling her. I just remember that. I remember, I just remember like on the phone to my mum. I was probably crying.
Yeah.
Like, like I was just like so relieved and joyful, and like, yeah, it was crazy. And then everything from then was just go. Like, I moved to New York like a month later or something.
Yeah, it was really quick, wasn't it?
Quick.
Yeah, my whole world was just like boom, just like that. Like completely shifted. And then I've been living in New York for 5 years ever since.
Oh, is it that long ago? That is crazy.
Yeah, it was 5 years.
Wow.
5 years ago. And it was wild. Like, it was a really intense 3 years working on those shows. Like, it was like from that moment onwards, I didn't fucking stop. I didn't stop for like, I guess 3 years straight. It was just go. And it was intense, and it was amazing. Like, I loved working that hard. I just never stopped. and it was exhausting, but at the same time, like I look back at it and it was like incredibly dynamic and like rewarding, and to push yourself to know that I can do that, to know that I can like really work myself that hard and be that disciplined and that focused is kind of I don't know, it's kind of a cool thing to say that you've done and you can do.
And I guess it must be mad as well, because obviously that was your first time, isn't it, going on to number one on the call sheet, I guess, and being like the lead.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how different the change was from that to boom, you're number one.
Yeah, it was like a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, you know, like you're the number one on the call sheet. So like you're leading the show, and it's the show that has incredible amount of like pressure surrounding it, expectation. I was moving my whole life to New York in a heartbeat. I had friends, family, I had a relationship, all of those things changed. And I just embarked on this new life, and like at the same time I was having to pick up new skills. I had to get myself in like peak physical fitness. I had to, you know, learn martial arts. I had to, you know, all of this kind of stuff, and at rapid breakneck pace. Like from the moment that I got the job, I was filming within like a month and a half, right?
Yeah.
I think
Wow.
I got the job in February, and like we started filming like end of March.
Wow.
It was very, very quick.
April. And then it was so fucking quick. And then from March, then from the beginning of shooting Iron Fist, I had like, what was it, 7 months of shooting the first season. And then immediately after shooting that first season, I went straight into the Defenders, straight in. So it was like a year of working nonstop, like 5 days a week, 14 hours a day, weekends training, like just I had no life other than that. And then after that year, then I think we went on a press tour because we released Iron Fist straight afterwards. And then I went into Luke Cage, I think it was.
Or did you go straight into Defenders? And I can't remember now.
No, it was Defenders. So it was like Iron Fist straight into Defenders. Yeah. Straight after Defenders, I went into a world press tour to release Iron Fist. And then maybe it was a press. No, then it was I can't even remember. Then I think it might have been the second season of Iron Fist, or Luke Cage first, and then
Luke
the second
Cage,
season.
In the second season of Iron Fist. It was.
No, it was Luke Cage, and then it was the launching of Defenders, and then it was the second season of Iron Fist. But whatever, it was just like it was nonstop.
That's insane, man. How once you went in, and you obviously had, was it like 3 years, you say, where it was just like nonstop? Yeah. What was the whirlwind like once those things got released and everything was out there, and I guess you finally finished filming? What was that like?
It was weird because like I was always what was it like? Well, as the shows were being released, I was still working on the shows, right?
Yeah, right.
I remember when Iron Fist was released, I was working on the Defenders. When the Defenders was released, I was on set, so I didn't have any time to really think about it or like contemplate it or really engage with it. I was just in the machine. I was just like firmly in the machine, and it was volatile. It was incredibly volatile. That first season coming out, there was a lot of conversation surrounding it. There was a lot of backlash. It wasn't received in the way that we hoped it was going to be received. And as an actor, that's always like the idea of like the worst thing that could possibly happen to you, right? What if you like spend a year of your life, like you get the job that you want, you know, you finally fucking got it, you did it, you fucking did it. You put all of that hard work into it. You put your best into it. You comes out and it gets trashed. It gets dragged through the mud. Like that's like, if someone was to tell me that would have happened to me like early on in my career, I would be so scared of that moment. I would feel like that moment would break me. But if anything, it taught me a lot. It really, really taught me a lot of like, how do I handle myself in those situations? It taught me about my own integrity as an actor, but also as a person, to hold myself in the line of fire and believe in my work no matter what, because I applied myself to that work. And I really did apply myself to that work with integrity and focus and discipline. And at the end of the day, if that end result isn't what you hoped for or the audience had hoped for, I know that because I held myself with discipline and integrity throughout the process, I can be proud of myself no matter what. And I really was, regardless of all the shitstorm that was going on around it and around me. I was really able to like still be proud of myself and be proud of my work. And I say that with like real truth. So then there was that. And then for the second season, you know, everyone realized the mistakes that we made creating the first season, which really, you know, the mistakes that were made was just, it was rushed. They rushed it too much. They just rushed it. And so with the second season, we really took a step back. We rehired a lot of people. We got different stunt coordinators, different producers, different directors, a different showrunner, different camera team. Like we really rebuilt that show from the ground up. And when we went into the second season, it was cool, man, because we were just so focused on rebuilding the show, and we all were, and we all did it, you know, like we all went back into the second season, and I think the second season was fantastic. I think we did such a great job. The fight sequences were dynamic, the storytelling was great. They really worked out a way to film the show where you weren't burning out the actors all the time, because in the first season I was burnt the fuck out, you know, like there was just no break. Like I was just burnt out. By the end of it, I was so burnt out because they hadn't realized that when you make a show about a martial artist, right, you have to allow the time to train that actor, to rest that actor, to, you know, to make sure that there is space for the work to breathe. and that just wasn't happening in the first season. So a lot of things were getting like, you know, just running down. Whereas in the second season, they realized that if you want to make a show like this, then you have to share the load with other actors, right? So it's not everyone is taking on this heavy burden of like carrying this action show on a television time frame and budget. You know, if it was a movie, it'd be different, because then you have more time and more money to really like let the show grow. Whereas on this specific show, it was very, you know, on the conveyor belt of making a television show. Yeah, and so anyway, so we did the second season, and we were all super proud of our work. We did a great job bringing the show back to life. We put the show out there. It got great reviews. We did it. We did what we set out to do. Like we came back. The underdog came back and proved that we could actually like create a good show. And then within, I think, 3 weeks of that show being released, they all got cancelled. And
all of them did. So all of them did.
They all got cancelled. Disney and Netflix parted ways because Disney wanted to make Disney Plus. And so it was like this crazy anticlimactic thing where you like, you know, you put in all the hard work to prove everyone wrong, and we were sure we were going to get a third season because we'd really done it, and then everything got cancelled. And that was another weird experience, you know. Talk about like, you know, and then like having your whole world just ripped out from underneath you, because that was essentially what happened. You know, I'd spent 3 years working so hard on that show, going through the ringer, the ups and the downs, and then bringing it back up again, and finally believing that, because, you know, also like, you know, when we were making season 2, we were fighting for our survival. You know, we were like, if we make another second season, we're not going to get a third season. So it was almost, you know, also like we were fighting to continue it, and then everything got cancelled. And it was weird. It was like, I remember it just felt like being hit by a fucking moving train. You know, suddenly all of the world that I'd built for the last 3 years, living in New York, I was like buying an apartment at the time. I was like deeply in this character with these people around me, like my castmates, my crew members. All of it was like a family. It was a lifestyle that I'd entrenched myself in completely for 3 years, that immediately was just like out of nowhere, out of nowhere was just like swept away. We had no idea. We never saw it coming.
Wow, that is.
And so again,
intense.
that's another like interesting life experience to go through, to see how you hold yourself in moments like that. You know, it's like, you tell anyone that they're going to go through that, you probably think they're going to break down and
I'm glad you can laugh about it now. That's good. That's a good sign.
Because I feel like, yeah, but I at the time it was disruptive, but I feel like, I don't know if it's just me or if like most people get into that fight or flight situation where something really bad happens in your life. You have two options. You either let it drag you down and you sink with it, or you're just like, well, fuck it. No, this is another challenge to overcome and to push myself through. And I guess that's just the way that I'm built for whatever reason. And I just got on with it. And I remember I traveled. I remember when I got that news, I was like, all right, I just need to get on the road. And I got on the road and I went upstate and I just traveled around upstate. I was camping upstate for a little bit, just trying to get some perspective and like reground myself and figure out like what my next course of action would be. And then, it was a kind of intense couple of months trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. I mean, I wasn't rebuilding it. I was just like restructuring it, I guess. And then, onto what was next. And then eventually found myself back out in LA, back on the grind, just back auditioning for stuff and just picking my, what do you say? Like picking my hat up, dusting it off and just getting back onto it. And
it's really interesting to hear it from your point of view because, I heard through Laurence and everything else, and I'd been an audience member. I watched the show, really enjoyed it,
right,
and saw the whole process. And I, had conversations with Laurence about it, and he was like, "Yeah, it's been really hard work, and now, doing the second season, all what you've just said there, and it's so interesting to hear that because from a person's point of view, when you don't know anything about what's going on behind the scenes, you're kind of like,
right.
oh, must be great, it must be brilliant, and it is really interesting to hear that struggle, not to revel in it too much, but just that is an incredible journey, and the fact that you've come out the other side, and at the end of the day, like you said, you've achieved that now. You did the best thing you could do with that job, and you now feel like if I can do that, I can do anything.
Pretty much. Like, yeah, you like it's like getting your stripes again. Do you know what I mean? It's I do believe that like in this life, it's the kind of struggles and the tests. It's like what we do in those moments and how we overcome those moments and who we are on the other side that builds us. And it's like those challenges are not something to be, or disruptions are not something to be shied away from. They're actually something to be met head on with. And those are the things that then build you into the person, hopefully a better person further on down the line, that you can start to take on more challenges and you can enjoy then the successes, because you've been through the moments where it's been not so good, and it gives you perspective.
It must have been nice too, I think. Like I remember, because I visited you a few times in New York when you were filming the first season, and going on set and seeing how stressful it was for you, and just being like, wow, this is just not what I expected to be like. Do you remember I was like, this is mad, this is crazy.
Exactly. You came when we was like doing the first season, right?
Yeah, and I think the first season,
in that warehouse down in Wreford.
And I remember like, wow, this is, and it was crazy. And then by the time it came out, and then I remember I think we were just going to get coffee somewhere, and and it just kind of come out, and the coffee guy was like, hold a minute, are you Iron Fist? And you were like, yeah, it's me, man. And he was like, great show, man. Like, have a fist pump. Like, it's an amazing show, really. And it was like, oh, that's the first one. And you were like, oh, cool, man. Like, someone's seen the show now. And it's like, after all that next season came out, it was nice to see.
That reminds me of another thing of what was going on, because like within I guess there was a lot of conversation, a lot of negative conversation online, a lot of bad reviews. So within certain circles, there was a lot of vitriol and a lot of like hate for the show and hate for the character. But then at the same time, there was my experience when I was on the street and I was bumping into people and I was at Comic-Cons. People fucking loved it. Yeah. People absolutely fucking loved it. And so it was this weird thing of where like I'd turn on my Twitter feed, right? And I'd see all of this like aggression and hatred and judgment. But then I'd like go out onto the streets and I'd meet people that were actually watching the show and I would have such positive experiences from people. And it was, I don't know, it was just this, it was just wild to kind of like, yeah, it was just wild.
Then we go to a Comic Con and people will come up dressed as Iron Fist, and we're like,
Oh
wow,
yeah.
okay, coming in, like,
And
you
that,
know, like,
and that was the beautiful thing about Comic Cons as well. God, I remember I was in Brazil. I was in Brazil for the season 1 press tour, and we were doing this press for Iron Fist, right, for the first season. And I remember just feeling so fucking. I felt really weird going out and having to promote the show after such a negative response. Like, I did not really want to be going on stage and like talking about it, because I just felt like everyone hated it. And I remember going on the stage in Brazil to this huge, huge, huge theater of people, and just the response that I got there, like the overwhelming admiration and love and respect for the show. I remember right there, it was like, it was hard for me to like not hold back the emotion, because I just felt so relieved, I guess, that my work was being received with positivity after so much hatred. You know, because say what you want about like what you know, your opinions on something. You know, I'll watch something and maybe not think it's that good, but like when you put your heart and soul and life into something, the last thing you want to be met with is hatred and judgment. You just want to, you know, you want someone at least to appreciate it and feel like, you know, you did it for a reason. And I remember going to these Comic Cons, and especially that one in Brazil, and just feeling so much just genuine love for the character and for the show, that made me just feel like, oh, it was worth it. You know, there are people engaging with it. And the more Comic Cons I did, and yeah, I realized that there was a group of people out there that really did engage with it and really did love it. So that was cool.
Nice. That's really nice to see.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, yeah,
that's cool.
It's also an iconic character that you'll forever be Iron Fist. Like that's
maybe
pretty cool. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was a moment in time, and it was exciting, and I learned a lot. You know, like I learned a lot about myself as a performer, myself as an individual, and how I carry myself in times of extreme pressure. I think that's the one thing that I will take away from that experience, is that I realize who I am when I'm under pressure, and I'm someone that, you know, I feel like I can hold myself pretty well. So that was cool. And yeah, now just on to the next thing and see what happens. Like I've been working on some cool projects since then, things that I really enjoy, you know, things that are really allowing me to like have the time to be a performer, you know. Like I did Dickinson recently, which was a show for Apple, and that was incredible, man, because like the whole process on Dickinson was very different from Iron Fist. You know, it was a show that took its time. You know, you could really, and also I was playing a character that was nasty. You know, he was the bad guy. He was lascivious. He was like, he was a snake. You know, and like having the time to just like really embed myself into that role and not feel rushed and not feel the pressure of judgment, just to have fun with it, was as a performer, felt like a really nice evolution. You know, like I'd just gone through the trenches. You know, I'd done that stuff, and now I was at a situation in my career where I could really start to have fun with performance. It didn't feel like something that I was like in the trenches, like grinding out the work, you know, which is fun. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I had a lot of fun on Iron Fist, but in terms of like having the space to feel like you're creatively applying yourself to the job, and not just applying yourself to the job because you have like a deadline or whatever. I felt like with Dickinson, I was allowed to do that. And like since then, like the roles that I'm taking on, I'm allowing myself to apply myself in a much more creative way, you know, and I don't feel that pressure as much. So cool. That feels like a cool place to be in my career right now, you know, where I can just like relax into it and like have fun with it.
And it couldn't be more different. I mean, Dickens is really like, that is, like, as you say, it's a villain as well. It's like a complete polar opposite of Iron Fist. So it's nice.
Yeah.
And to have the time, and I can imagine trying to learn, like, do the martial arts and all the stunts, and everything. There's so many other facets to that where you're like, that it must be nice to just like, I get to say some lines now and not have to worry about choreography and everything else.
Yeah, but then at the same time, I do miss that as well. Like I do miss, I miss the dynamic, hard work of like working on an action show. You know, like I can't wait for the day to like actually work on something again where I have to apply myself like that. Especially now that I've had the break. Like I know, you know, I'm ready to like jump back in and do something like that. And there's been a couple of auditions I've had recently where they are more action-based roles, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get back into that shit and really like apply myself with renewed perspective. Yeah, this is cool. I like the idea of like playing more like less kind of clean cut, earnest, heroic roles. You know, I feel like I've done that quite a lot in my career. You know, the boyfriend, the knight, the superhero. You know, they're all fun to a point, but now I want to start.
What a list, though.
Yeah.
What you've just said there, that is like any actor's dream, isn't it? You know, the knight, the superhero, whatever. Let's just take a moment to appreciate that. That is pretty cool. I mean, guys, we've been chatting for quite some time now. We've gone way over what I expected. This is the longest one we've done so far. But no, it's been really, really interesting, man. And like, just to wrap it up, unless there's anything else you wanted to, you know, say after you kind of on a roll there, but no, this has been wicked. I want to ask, obviously, because you guys alluded to it earlier. So is there a maybe an anecdote, a story that you guys would like to share that you know, one of these stories that you alluded to right at the beginning? Anything you'd like to share?
There's been so many.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of.
What do you reckon, Laurence?
I'm trying to wrap my brain.
We should well Chile. I mean, the last convention we did in Chile.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
that was pretty amazing. So we went and did a convention in Chile right when they were having these huge, massive protests, like millions of people in the streets, a lot of civil unrest there, and we were meant to do a convention there. I think it was originally in September, and then the convention got cancelled because the unrest was like so intense, and then they rescheduled it for January. Was that it?
It was last year, wasn't it? I think
2020. It was 2020. Yeah, it was January 2020. It was the last thing that I did before everything went down. We were just doing this convention in this country, in this city, when they were undergoing like huge social unrest.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating getting to travel to a country that was going through such a dynamic point in their cultural story.
You know?
Yeah. And so we actually went to a lot. We were at the protests pretty much every night, weren't we?
We did, and I think I remember, because what was interesting was when we got there, people were asking us, you know, have you seen what's going on in Chile? Is it coming on in the news where you are? And I was like, to be honest, it hasn't really come from in England. We haven't really seen much about it, which is a shame. But yeah. And I know that the same in the States, but when we got there, we're like, wow, now we can really see things going on. The first night at the hotel, I think it was, there was always like protests happening outside the hotel, and the hotel would like have to close all the doors and be right, no one can leave the hotel for the moment, like just chill out. And then people have a few little like fires and stuff in the streets. And then one day after the convention, I think we were just walking down the street and we could see a protest in front of us, didn't we? And we're like, we can either go left and avoid it, or we can go straight on and like kind of go.
Me, I was the one who went to seek it out.
Was like, yeah, you were like, let's go.
Protest. I was like, let's fucking get into it.
Yeah,
get into it, man. Because you know they're over there. They're fighting for. I mean, they've had a lot of like really intense neoliberal policies over there since the Pinochet era, since the 70s. Just like an extreme amount of inequality. I think Chile has the most gap of inequality anywhere in the Western world, anyway. And so there was a lot of it was a really dynamic and fascinating time of like the people fighting back against the ruling class, and I always find that a really fascinating dynamic when you're in a protest where everyone is unified against the dominant ruling class, right? It's not divided. The people aren't divided based on color or politics or religion. They're actually all unified against, in my opinion, what is the real oppressor, or at least the dominant oppressor. And so for me, I was just like, I was fascinated. Like I just love being a part of that fight. And so we would go there, and we really got into the middle of it, and we were being, I mean, there was like well, they were spraying tear gas. No, they were shooting grenades.
That's it.
Gas grenades.
And
they were
then,
shooting
like,
gas grenades into the cloud. They had these water cannons, like huge fucking military style water cannons, which they were spraying everyone with water. But it wasn't just water. The water had some kind of like pepper spray in it, and so when it touched your skin, it made your skin itch. It was wild.
I remember, like, we turned around, and as they started coming closer, we were kind of standing there with everybody, and you look away, and there's like an old lady, probably in her 70s, 80s, with a flag, like holding a flag up. Suddenly, we just had to run because all these things are coming flying at us. It was mad, and then having to run away. And I remember walking away, and suddenly we got separated, and it was like my eyes were all stinging, and I was like, "What's going on? Like, what are we doing? This is meant to see." Yeah, that was pretty mad.
And the police were vicious over there. There was a whole thing where they were deliberately shooting people in the face. With the rubber bullets to blind them. And so everywhere you'd have, like, there was lots of pictures with like people that had died, or people under the hands of the police with an eye missing, because that's what the Pinera, who is the prime minister over there, or whoever, the president, or whatever they call him, he told the police force to go and do that to people, to blind them, to show them a lesson.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fascinating. So it was wild to be over there during that time, and also like to be there and to be bringing a lot of like positivity, because there was a lot of aggression, and there was a lot of like resistance going on in the streets. But at the same time, during the day, we would go and do the Comic-Con, and in the evening we would go out and protest. And it was really amazing to be a part of a society and contribute in both ways.
And it's also really interesting just to hear from the people, like, what was actually going on. Not watching on the news. Tell me what really is, how it is for you guys. And it was really interesting to learn, and a great experience.
Yeah, it was a really, really great experience.
That must have been crazy as well, because it having not been as publicized here. You obviously were coming over from LA, I presume, but like that must have been a bit weird to turn up there and be like, wow, this is a completely different thing. And
yeah, I mean, I was always aware of it. I think we were both aware of it because we were both booked there in September, so it got cancelled. So we knew what we were going into, and I was into it, man. I like to run towards the struggle. I think that's what, I said it over and over again. Like, that's where the interesting things lie. It's like when you get yourself into that shit and you discover it for yourself. You make up your own mind on what's going on based on the experiences that you have in the moment. But yeah, what a beautiful country, man. But then also, like, and the wonderful thing about that was that on the streets, it was just like the spirit of I guess revolution was everywhere, right? And it wasn't just aggressive, like, I remember one time we were like walking away from a protest after being there for a couple of hours, and we went down these little side streets, and we just came into the most amazing like street theater. Yeah, well, it would start off the street theater. It was on the crossroads, and there was this group of like street performers that were telling the story of the political historic struggle of Chile, and it was incredible. It was like this street performance protest art performance thing. And so we stood there and watched that, and it was like, wow, this is like fucking cool. This is like so dynamic. And then that turned into like a street party where like the big band came out, and like everyone started like dancing, and just seeing the spirit of resistance not only take form of aggression and violence and fighting, but also resistance also being able to be like celebratory, and art and dancing and performance and music. I just was very inspired by that, and I'd love to see some of that in our countries. I think we're in desperate need a protest movement, because we're living in really unequal times. You know, the billionaire class has seen their profits rise by 40% over the course of this pandemic. People are losing their jobs, middle class is non-existent, and yet the richer keep on getting rich. And I do feel like we need to have a new civil rights movement in the West. And it would be nice to see that civil rights movement not just come from a place of aggression, but also come from a place of creativity, you know? And I hope as performers and as artists moving forward into this new landscape, we're able to do something like that, you know, tell stories that can help the struggle of the everyday people. Because if we're not doing that, then what the fuck are we doing? You know?
Yeah. And what a way to finish. I think that's a powerful note to end on. I think that was like some sort of political speech you just gave there. That was very inspiring.
Yeah.
No, honestly, that thanks guys, both of you. It's just it is really inspiring, and it's just really nice to have a chat, isn't it? And like kind of just like reconnect and everything else. But I really appreciate it, because neither of you had to do this. So thanks guys.
No problem at all, man. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good to connect with you all again. It's been so long.
I can't believe we've been talking for that long. That's like
how long have we been talking for? Oh, nearly. Yeah, sorry. That's me just going off on one.
No, it's great. It's great, because I like to, you know, I say to people like it's 45 minutes to an hour, but you know, if it flows and people want to talk and they're like, you know, animated about it, then you know, there's no reason. If people have got the time to keep going, it's interesting, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing anything at the moment.
I mean, yeah. Luckily for me, like it's quite nice, because I was saying to Laurence that actually it's quite hard to get. I want to have crew come on and production people and everything else, but they're all busy, like prepping things and working, and it's been more of the actors, which I guess would actually usually be the harder ones to get hold of. Been up for coming on and having a chat, so it's actually been really nice. And
that's great that you're getting other people, like other facets of the team involved. You know, that really is. I mean, one of the things I love about working on film and television production so much is the group mentality. You know, it's the fact that you're part of the team, bringing something to life. And a lot of the time, crew members do get overlooked, especially when it comes to like conversations like these, and like they have a lot of really interesting stories and perspectives to bring to the conversation as well.
It's really a family vibe, isn't it? And I think for anyone that isn't a part of the film industry, it's quite hard to describe. You know, I've never done a series, but you know, going on and doing a job for a long period of time, and those people become your family, and it's a very unique experience. And it must have been amazing working with the same people for that long.
Oh, it was incredible, man. It was such a family. And I often liken this job to like being a part of the circus, you know, and like every time you go onto a different job, it's like a different circus crew. You know, you're just the traveling circus, you know, like a group of people that go around telling stories and then on to the next one, you know, and there's a real gypsy kind of mindset to it. Like, I remember this last thing, I remember on the graduation day of leaving drama school, our head of acting, we were in this church, we were having the ceremony in this church for some reason. There was a church very close to our drama school, and our John Abbott, our head actor, teaching actor, was on the pulpit giving us a speech. And the last thing he said is like, and remember, when you leave here, you're not just going out there as an actor, you are rogues and you are vagabonds. And like that was the last thing he said, and like fuck me, that has stayed with me, because that is essentially what we are. Like we're traveling artists that tell stories, and we have to do it with the spirit of being a rogue and a vagabond, you know.
I love that. That is great.
Yeah, it's always stuck with me.
I'm gonna steal that. Like, that's gonna be mine now. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna be a vagabond from now on.
Definitely, you gotta have that. You gotta have that way of seeing.
That's a nice way to look at it as well, and be relaxed about it, and be like, we are just expressing ourselves and playing and having fun, and remember that is the whole point, to have fun.
Yeah, and also the chaos, you know, the fact that it isn't stable, like the instability is all part of it. You know, that is the lifestyle. That is part of the circus. It is part of being a rogue and a vagabond, is that you're just wandering around, picking up jobs here and there and telling stories where you can.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
See you in a bit. Bye.
Bye.
We are a small independent podcast, so we hugely appreciate your support and word of mouth. Thank you for listening to A Life in Film. We hope we carry a positive message to those of you starting out, those of you who are veterans in the industry, and those of you who are simply fascinated by film.
It's a life in film. It's a life in film. It's a life in film. It's a life in film. It's a life in film. It's a life in film. It's a life in film. And you better come back next month to A Life in